This is CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast, with George Dubinsky, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean, the CRM Hobbit Tabor.
This episode is sponsored by KingswaySoft. KingswaySoft is our favorite SSIS adapter for CRM, offering software solutions that make data integrations affordable and painlessly easy. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 60 countries and regions rely on KingswaySoft to integrate data with various application systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. KingswaySoft offers full-featured adapters for the entire Dynamics family, as well as Salesforce.com, Dropbox, OneDrive, Parature, and more. KingswaySoft offers the easiest to use integration and migration tools with the most features for the lowest cost. We thank KingswaySoft for their support of CRM Audio.
So you were telling me that you were playing with Voice of the Customer. What do you think, George?
It looks very promising. It's early days. Not all of the functionality that you might want from the surveys is available. We did talk about it briefly, that how to make dependent questions, for example. That's not clear. I've been playing around with it. There is a way to link questions, but it's only for reporting purposes. So
what my question was, if you're going to really survey people, a survey, I always cringe when I hear people say I want a survey, which means I basically want everybody to be sent a form. To me, a survey is like a random survey, such as, who are you going to vote for president? Are you going to vote for Trump? They don't ask every single voter. That's called the election. They ask a sampling. Is there any way for me to say generate a random sample of 5% of my clients, and then next month get 5% that we didn't survey last month?
The audience selection is not part of the current release. So this one is targeting the survey construction, the design. There is a visual designer that helps you to put in variety of fields of different types. They are kind of they're not your typical online form. They're fields besides the standard fields like short text or long text, or they call it short answer, long answer, or date. Or something like this, or numerical response. There are also survey-specific fields like ranking, customer satisfaction, so CSAT, net promoter score, Smiley's rating. I'm just looking at the list of fields.
Okay, so the smiley rating.
I have no idea what it is. I'm just gonna
stored. Is it say smile or frown in the database?
Select the face that best describes your relationship with, and in brackets, organization product.
Okay. How about
are you happy, not happy?
How about reporting on the data? Once the data is in CRM, say you have 10 different surveys, how do you make sense of it from a reporting standpoint?
There are few built-in reports. 3 built-in reports are Net Promoter Score, Survey Export, I presume just plain export, and Survey Summary. So these are standard entities in CRM, so you can build whatever report you feel like. But going back to the audience selection and so on, I'm not entirely sure that it's survey domain. To me, Voice of the Customer, it's a survey mechanism. So it's like an engine that allows you to publish surveys anonymous or not anonymous on the internet. And once a survey is published, you can send link to the customer, you can ask them to log in and so on, collect the answers, and then the most important part, of the survey is what do you do once you get the answer? And here's where voice of the customer does put some additional functionality in. Like, if response X comes in, what do you do? So there is a concept of response routing, for example. So depending on the response, you can take an action. You can set up alerts. For example, if satisfaction is less than 75%, you can alert someone to get back to the customer and so forth.
Oh, so that's defined on a per question basis?
And the conditions, I presume, would be on the fields of the survey. Yeah, so it has the link to the question and has the operator, which is equal, greater, selected, and so forth, and specific answer. So you can say if someone ranked you less than 4 stars, if you have a 5-star question, then, or if someone clicked on the frowning face, then you can say, okay, do this and this, raise alerts, send email, whatever. You can follow it up. So to me, these operations, like profiling the customers, deciding which subset to send surveys to, and then do something in response to the specific information in the survey, to me, that's the CRM domain. That's what CRM is good at, and I don't believe that voice of the customer should take over in, for example, ability to profile your customer base. If you've got 1 million records in the database, yeah, and you want to send out 5,000 surveys, it would be up to you to decide, okay, who do I send it to? Do I send it to my most active customers? Do I send it to random customers, and so forth? So it's about building a marketing list effectively. Right? And how you build your marketing list, it's totally up to you. And then you feed survey to only people on that marketing list. And the same goes about responses. So once you get response, once you trigger some conditions depending on the response, then it will be up to CRM to decide what to do, what action to take, and so forth. So I'd rather see enhancements in the surveys themselves, like ability to conditionally show or hide some questions, perhaps add some custom scripting on those forms for even better functionality. Maybe iframe some external information and so forth. But it looks very promising. It's not clear how it's going to be priced. Because it uses Azure resources to host those surveys. So to me, it's still unclear. If you send in those, 1 million surveys, who's going to foot the bill for running those surveys in Azure?
So right now, when you create a survey, it gives you the link for your survey, and then you can just email it to somebody or embed it in something?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, it does give you a link to your survey. It's got a very specific domain name. Incidentally, it does include crm.dynamics.com, but clearly it doesn't go into CRM. It's probably a website hosted on Azure. You probably share resources with some other surveys and so forth.
It looks like it lets you do some level of customization of the CSS and things like that to change colors. Have you played with any of that?
I haven't played yet. It does allow you to insert your image, skin it a bit with CSS, insert header, footer. I haven't played with it, but as we speak, as a video being published, by now it should be published, voice of the customer introduction.
Yes.
But yes, for those of you who never seen it before, would be interested to have a look what it looks like, what's the installation experience is like. There is a CRM tip of the day video, introduction to voice of the customer. You can just sit have a cup of coffee, take 10 minutes and just watch it in action. And then we'll have the plan. So Derek has videos in the pipeline where we dive into voice of the customer in more details, and those videos would help people to decide if it's for them, if it's suitable, and so on.
Let's look at some of the tips of the day we've had in the last week or so. I was on vacation recently, and so none of these tips are written by me. But there were some interesting ones. What was the one about the button to send the pending email? Is that saying, like, if you have an email that's waiting to be sent, giving you the ability to manually send it?
The way we've been using it on the latest project was something like this. There is a proposal coming from the customer through the portals, and customer can upload some attachments to that proposal. So they end up as attachments in CRM on the proposal record, which is a separate record. So then customer wants to, sorry, I was talking about customer of the customer, right? So then our customer in CRM, what they want to do is to be able to run workflow on that proposal and build an email and include those attachments. So the uploaded attachments. So the way to do it is you can't just send email in the workflow. So what we did, we create an email first, we put the text in. So we have a draft email record inside the workflow. Then we need to copy those attachments. We created a custom workflow action to do that. So it goes to these proposal records, takes the attachments, and basically copies them and attaches to the email. Fine. The final step is send email. Right? So you've got email in draft. Now we need to push it out. For years, since CRM 2011, and it's been working like a clockwork, all you need to do is to set status of the email to pending send. And then whatever mechanism you have, would it be router, Outlook, online sync, this mechanism would pick it up, detect this email, pick it up, and send it. And we had the tip in the past how to resend your emails, which basically use the same concept. So you have like a failing email that failed for whatever reason, or stuck in pending send. The solution was have a workflow that resets it to draft, perhaps, if you want to, and then sets it to pending send, or just sets it to pending send, and it would go out. For this customer, they've been using CRM Online, they've been using Dynamic CRM for Outlook. I don't know what the reason is, but setting status to pending send suddenly stopped working, or doesn't work for them. It just sits there. Outlook would scan this email, say nothing to send, and just gets out, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't trace it. So ideally, I would set up, a fiddler trace to see what Outlook is looking for. But looks like there's some additional information in the query that Outlook sends out to CRM saying, do you have something for me to send? It used to be like, just give me all pending send or something like that. There are probably some additional filters, and those emails no longer picked up. Perhaps there is some other combination of factors, I don't know. Maybe because it's internal email, maybe because it has attachments. I have no idea. Bottom line is that setting status to pending send was never documented.
Right.
It was never official.
Right. So that's an important thing where people do things that that are not documented. I always warn them that can go away because it's not really a feature. People, for example, where people would set the deletion state code to 2, and now the deletion state code field is gone, for example.
Correct. Yes. So in the end of the day, the correct solution is to create a custom workflow action inside CRM that does nothing else but sends emails. The interesting side effect of this action, as I discovered, it actually returns your subject of the email. And for this customer, it turned out to be quite important because they use tracing tokens. So if you send email without a tracing token, and you use this send email message to actually send email, what you get back is actually the real subject that's going to go out.
Okay.
So it would have a tracing token inside it. So if that's of interest to you, you can extract it and do something with it, use regular expressions to get this token, store it somewhere else, and so forth. But that's important that send email does some other processing besides just sending email or setting status to pending send.
Right.
The other interesting parameter I found is you can set it to not actually send email.
Why would you want to do that?
I have no idea, but there is a parameter there which says just set it as sent, as if it was sent, but actually don't send it.
I've used that for. I mean, that kind of thing is ideal for integrations where you're bringing in historical emails and you want to mark them sent, but you don't want them to all go out.
Oh, here you go. Yeah, I haven't thought about this scenario, but that would be a perfect occasion when you want just to mark email as sent without actually sending it.
I found one of those weird things that changed that are not documented as well that kind of confounded one of my clients that just upgraded from CRM 2011, and that is they had activity views, as many clients do, to see how many activities are being created by which people. And in 2011, they had that based on the created by field. But if you look in CRM 2015 and 2016, when you track an email, and I'm not sure if this is a server-side sync thing or whatever, every email that is tracked says created by system now instead of created by George Dubinsky. And so they said, who is this system person? And so I researched and I had to tell them, recommendation is don't base your activity views where the person who created it is important for maybe activity tracking purposes on the created by, base it on the owner field, which technically somebody could create one and then reassign it, but for tracked stuff it's created as an inactive record. So the owner created by, and definitely don't do modified by, because if you just cough at a record, it changes the modified field. If you click on a note, it changes the modified on field.
I wasn't receiving end of the customer anger. We installed the solution for the customer, and part of our solution was we processed the numbers, the mobile and phone numbers, and we recorded a normalized version of those numbers. That includes country code and so forth. There is a normalized notation. There are public libraries that help you to do that depending on what the country is and so forth. And, well, in our wisdom, we created an extra field on the customer record and just recorded the number there. Turns out, and we didn't know that they base some very important system functionality on modified by date. And modified by, so modified on and modified by, on those two fields. And suddenly, after we've been done with these numbers, turns out all their customer records were modified by this integration service and all on the same date, which completely screwed up their pipeline reporting.
Right. I've had that happen too.
I'm not particularly happy.
And sometimes it's two different requirements conflicting with each other, where we want to have the person who made the change, but then we want to have this other do it. And you can kind of, if it's a workflow that does it, the answer is probably real-time workflow running under the context of the person who made the change. But yeah, if you got an integration that comes up and updates records or something like that, that's I always discourage people basing anything on the modified on field or modified by, or
I'd say, yeah, on
capture a
system
log,
fields, it's just not a good idea.
capture a log where every time it changes, it logs it, and then you can see, kind of like the audit trail does, you can see each person making the changes. But yeah, especially, I mean, I was asked the question, like if somebody's going to really track me, thinking as an employee, track something based on how many people are updating that, usually that's a pretty stressful environment to work in anyway. You have something
Indeed.
looking over your shoulder constantly to see how many times you are pushing the button.
Yeah, been there.
You just got to ask the question. When you get a requirement like that, you got to really get to the why for the requirement. And it's, do you want to, just like when somebody says, I want every email my employee sends to be tracked in CRM, that usually indicates they don't trust their employees.
Yeah. There's a question of trust, but do you think that there are valid scenarios where you do want to see statistics on certain things, not because you want to track who's done what, but mostly what's been used in CRM? I got the question yesterday from a friend of mine asking how we can tell which reports, they have like a couple reports on employee records, how we can tell which reports are actually being used and how often.
Yeah.
Incidentally,
do we really need all these reports? Yeah, I think there's a case for that. What did you tell him?
Look, on SSRS reports, I couldn't think of the better way. As I look, IIS logs is one place. Someone else suggested that you can look in SSRS logs to see which reports been invoked and when and so forth. But interestingly enough, that one of their reports, which is run in Power BI has built-in statistics for the report usage. It can tell you, it's got like a report dashboard, which can tell you how often this report been run and when. So, but Power BI is anonymous. So because you cannot pass identity of the user running the report. So Power BI reports stay anonymous.
I wonder if you could do anything with like a web page cookie type thing, kind of like the click dimensions, I guess kind of like Google Analytics. If you put an image in there or in the report or something that would trigger that cookie, or I'm wondering if there's any possibility to do that.
Oh, the infamous one pixels.
Yeah, exactly, something like that.
Yeah, I guess.
Because I'm thinking specifically for online, because you wouldn't be able to do anything with the SRS or IIS logs with online.
It's quite an interesting idea. So what you could do, perhaps have an image with the user ID, whatever it is, like email or whatever, .gif, which is one pixel image, right? So you can build it at runtime and inject it, and then you would host it on your server, and then you see who's been running what.
Right, but that is one thing too. If you've written a lot of reports for CRM Online, you'll know that they do block certain types of Visual Basic code and things like that you can insert into reports that run on premises. It's quite frequent we have somebody who's a experienced SRS developer get in a project, and then they find a requirement and think, oh, well, I can just write this function and put it in the report, and then they test it works, and they upload it into CRM Online, and it doesn't work anymore because they block all that stuff.
That's one of the things. The other thing to remember is that Fetch XML based reports, they don't work on more than 50,000 records.
Right.
So that's a big blocker. That's the reason why people if those reports are important, people tend to replicate that data into either CRM on premises or kind of data warehouse platform or something like that. Extract them with some connector like Kingsway Soft, who is our sponsor. So I feel I don't feel bad mentioning them.
And lose all their security limitations to the data in the process.
Correct, yes, but you can get around that. But that's important.
Who needs security anyway, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The other tip that I was going to mention that I thought was a really good one was one that was suggested by Mitch, which was 596, and that one is the new button that's shown up in the solution menu, prepare client customizations. But anyway, what this button does, and those of you who have done mobile know this, that when you have people using the CRM mobile apps on tablets and smartphones, after you publish customizations, the first poor soul that connects to CRM and gets the pop-up that says, "Would you like to download the customization updates?" It takes sometimes a very long time. It's, as you said in the post, it's like watching paint dry. The other people have a little bit of a delay, but not nearly as long as that poor first person. And the reason for that is when you have mobile, what's happening the first time there's a request for it, it builds a package on the server, and then that's downloaded to the client. So what this lets you do is this lets you pre-build that package so that people then connecting with mobile, but not only mobile, remember it's also the Outlook app, the new Outlook app, as well as the integrated service hub, all use Mocha, the mobile framework. And so that's a really good thing to know about if you got mobile.
There was a good discussion on that post. Someone asked, why wouldn't do it automatically? You publish and it just does it, like prepares customizations for the mobile. And I thought there was a good reply that sometimes you wouldn't want it to be automatic. That's the same like server-side sync or something like that. You don't want it in your development environment. If in development environment where you do things and publish very frequently, the last thing you want is for these customizations to be prepared for the mobile, which you don't use at all. So I guess it's not a bad decision to make it a separate button and to make it a conscious decision to publish those customizations.
I still don't get why you wouldn't just do it automatically. I mean, does it take? I haven't used it. Does it take a noticeable amount of time?
I don't use mobile that often, so I don't know. But even if it's like 10 seconds,
I don't have a .1 version, a .1 environment to test it.
But maybe you want to test the experience of the first customer, so of the first client. How do you do that if it publishes automatically? So
maybe just like
what happens if you publish again whilst it's being published? And it's just so many permutations. This one is much cleaner from my point of view, more controllable. I mean, ideally you would have a checkbox which say, you know what? This is production. When I publish something, I want it to happen automatically. But then again, imagine if you're doing a large update to the production and you install a couple solutions and you publish those solutions after you install each one. You don't want to trigger this publishing until you're done. Speaking of solutions and variety of online solutions or variety of solutions available in CRM Online, the one thing that I picked up on and one thing people need to be aware of is sheer quantity of various components that potentially are installed with those solutions. The one thing that really surprised me is how many plugin steps are registered by Field 1 solution. Would you care to guess?
There's a lot. I know that.
Yeah, you know that
Say
now.
Yeah.
18.
Yeah. The figures the largest guess I received from actually a developer, an independent developer, he estimated it at 30. Well, the reality is about 780 of them, and we found that not only does that, it registers up to 9 plugin steps for certain entities. So it registers everything that is possible, like pre-update, post-update, synchronous, asynchronous. It registers everything possible, but it does some not very nice things like registration on all columns. So when you register plugin for update, you can say, hey, look, don't trigger me every time. Trigger me only when customer name changes. Right? And it significantly improves the performance of the plugin because it sits there just waiting for things to happen. If you say trigger me on all the columns, this is typically considered to be a bad practice. You don't want that to happen because your plugin will execute every single time. So, and they do have a number of plugins that registered on all columns. If you're interested to see what it looks like, you can install Field 1 into your CRM Online organization and then go to xrm.tools. That's a wonderful online tool that David Yak has been building for quite some time, and it gives you insight into plugins, how many of them, potential flags, like all columns registered and so forth. So that was an ultimate test case.
Are there other like system plugins that you don't see in the list? Because I know like on Opportunity and other entities, there are system JavaScript functions that if you use one of those tools like the XRM tools to get all the JavaScript on an entity, or like the XRM toolbox tools, you will see several functions that don't show in the event handlers for the form. So I'm sure there are others. But do you see 700 steps when you go to the SDK messages part of the?
No, there are no explicit SDK messages. I'm sure that there are some things happening in the background. Like when you register plugin and say, you know what, I want to be notified when name changes. Someone somewhere need to set a flag saying, hey, someone is interested in name change only. Please wire up this code to the change of the name. So that's deep inside CRM server core, this functionality. So it's kind of supporting users probably would use the same architecture as the plugin, but would be hardwired. You wouldn't see it on the surface.
So could this be because there's so many different pieces and parts within Field 1? So for example, on a work order, you might need to know when the service account changes or the billing account changes, or you might need to know when the resource is scheduled or the system status changes. I mean, there's so many different things that really impact the ability to execute the field service component, both on the mobile device for the field service workers and for the dispatchers, for example. That's why they're doing that on. I mean, I'm not saying that executing it on all columns is a good thing by any stretch of imagination, but there are so many of the columns that could be needed by different roles or different actions or different dependent entities.
Look, I understand. I'm not arguing that they don't need all of that. That wasn't my my point at all. The point was, well, there are two sides to it. The one is pure deployment sides. You do need to be aware that there is a large number of components that are installed by solutions. And the number could be quite significant.
Right.
The second point was, and it's pure development point, is that there is ability in the system to register plugin on all entities. So you can say, here's my code, I want to run it regardless what the entity is. When something gets updated, please let me know. And I've been wondering as a developer, what is kind of the threshold from the server perspective point of view? What is more efficient? At some point, it would be more efficient to register plugin on all entities inside your plugin to have a look what the entity is, what the fields are updated, and then make a decision if it's for you or not for you, if it's of any interest to you, execute your code or just get out, right? And I wonder at what point in time it would be much more efficient to do just that rather than register 780 plugins.
Sure. And do you think that could be due to the maturity of the actual product, being that it was just purchased and really has only had one?
The product is quite mature to start with.
Well, I'm
Right,
saying it, I'm
but
saying
maturity
it's part
of the
of
assimilation of the product.
right.
Maybe,
That's really where I'm going. More of it maturity within the core.
Will it become more like a standard modules in the system and more elegantly integrated than it currently is?
Exactly.
I assume it will be. As with any product purchased by Microsoft, the first step is to make it work on Microsoft platform, bring it to the standards of Microsoft release cycle or Microsoft release software, and then there would be a natural cycle of enhancements, improvements, code reviews, and so forth. So I expect its solution to improve. I'm very curious. I'm like, I've got itchy hands to just pull down those plugin DLLs and just do despicable thing and reverse engineer just to have a look what's inside.
Just for fun, just to make sure that happens.
Repackage it and call it Field 2.
Exactly.
I'm sure I will be breaking more than one licensing agreement whilst doing that.
Yeah. Next thing you know, George created a new product, Pasture 2.
So, Sean, what's new?
Well, the biggest news I would go with right now is the release of the voice of the customer functionality within the platform from Microsoft. Pretty cool piece of functionality, and it looks like that is actually part and parcel of some of the new of the customer service certification as well. So that's pretty interesting that some of that functionality is actually in the certification product. So I have not yet gotten to get under the hood with the voice of the customer functionality yet, but this is really tying in Azure with CRM. Most of the voice of the customer functionality is housed within Azure, and I would be curious to see a comparison between this survey functionality and with something like Click Dimensions to understand, the differences, the benefits, clearly, since it's part of the product and you're not really paying more for it. That has some benefits in and of itself, but the overall functionality, the ability to skip questions and have conditional branching, I'd want to see if that kind of functionality is there and how robust it is.
Here's my take on that. I mean, I'm sure that the functionality is more robust currently in Click Dimensions, but my opinion is this will quickly catch up once they improve some of the dependent questions and things like that. I think the biggest advantage Click Dimensions, in my opinion, has right now is that it's so much more integrated into the marketing process, so that if you can have a nurture campaign and have it send a survey at a given point, you could do that with voice of the customer, but it's going to be a lot more work for you to do that. But on the other hand, the nice thing about the voice of the customer surveys is being able to say, automatically send a link to one in a case or something like that. Although arguably, if you had a URL to a Click Dimensions survey, I could do the same thing. So that's what I anticipate, that having that and having it with Click Dimensions being so tightly integrated in with their very nice campaign visual campaign designer and nurture marketing capability is an advantage. Although, again, you could do a voice of the customer survey and use that link in your marketing campaign in Click Dimensions.
The one use that you mentioned for the voice of the customer that currently working with the customer to see if they can use it is not a survey as such, but collecting information from their customers. So they've got suppliers who need to do, for certification purposes, they need to go through the checklist for every consignment or purchase order, and they need to tick the box saying these, but not these, and so forth. And currently they have, with each purchase order, they send a PDF to the customer to fill in, then they send it back, and effectively they're saying, yes, this customer is compliant on this order because they ticked all the boxes. So this is we're looking at using voice of the customer to collect this information.
How are you going to tie it to a specific order, though? A survey comes in. How do you?
I don't know yet. That's kind of big question mark. Can I tie it? Can I introduce a link between surveys and, let's say, ordered entity?
Can you put contextual CRM data in it? Can I reflect, dynamic information from a CRM record?
That would be interesting. If
you could do that, then this could be a simple portal front end, basically.
Right.
If I could tie this to a record and have a field for first name, last name, email address, somebody fills it out, updates your record, then you basically got a simple portal form.
So, but are you also thinking if there was an order or a case that was called in, then this survey automatically generates, and you're able to say your last conversation regarding, and then you insert, XML regarding that object into this survey, and it appears seamlessly to the customer. That kind of context would also be would be great to see. Just
I don't know. I'll report next time because as far as I can see, survey entity is not locked down. So I can link it to, say, orders or any other entity just fine. Add fields to it. They won't certainly appear on the design surface of the survey, but I will be able to link survey to a specific order. The question is, will I be able to bubble up fields from the order into the survey, even as snippets of HTML? Just to display, even as a link, say, here's the link to your order, and that order would be displayed in a portal. There's certainly a lot of functionality yet to be discovered. So, I encourage everyone, just go to CRM Tip of the Day and watch the introduction video, how to install it, how to get it up and running.
So is there any other news?
I'm sorry, that's all I got. That's all the news that's really out there is SpringWave and voice of the customer.
Yeah, SpringWave, we can't talk much about it, regardless how much we know.
Right.
Because as we speak, there's an airlift for the SpringWave, so there's early alpha organizations being provisioned, and then there will be beta testing very soon. We're talking about weeks, and then after that there will be some, I assume, some public preview. So We're talking about literally a time frame of a few weeks, perhaps a couple months, and it's all going to be out in the open. But I expect that NDA will be lifted fairly soon, at least as far as the scope of the SpringWave is concerned. I believe there is a partner blitz scheduled for next week or week after, I don't remember. And I would assume that even if NDA is not released, experience shows that some of the partners just can't help themselves, and information will leak regardless.
Right. Yeah, the NDA is much leakier than it used to be, and I think everybody's realizing you can't keep it bottled up these days. There's a thing that you put out in a webcast or something, somebody's going to mention it. but we're not breaking NDA.
No.
Now we did get a comment on Facebook, George, and it asked, why does George always sound like he's in the restroom? I think it's because of your far away muffled sound. And I've got to
Well,
say,
I am far away to start with.
Yeah.
I'm about in miles, probably 14,000 miles away.
But hopefully you no longer sound like you're in the
Well-
loo, the bathroom, and that's because of our tool of the week.
Yes, that's the one thing I wanted to mention, that I put blame squarely on the software that you use to modify my voice during the recording to make me sound like I'm in the bathroom. So hopefully this week it will be resolved, because we use this brand new and squeaky tool called Zencaster, and I thought we've done with missing vowels in the names. So it's like a Zencaster, but without an E before R.
Right.
Like with Grindr, in the same category as Grindr. What else is Binder and Tinder and other apps for the phones?
There's a lot of apps that you seem to be familiar with that I really don't want to dive why you have familiarity with them, George. Just saying.
Anyway, so we're using Zencaster
Yes.
to record this podcast, and I
Yeah.
believe that would be our tool of the week.
And it's pretty cool because, and I can think of a lot of uses for this outside of podcasting, because most of our listeners aren't podcasters, but what it does is it records a local version of each of our audio on our own computers, and then dumps each one of them into a Dropbox. And from there, you can use audio editing of software of your choice to combine them together.
If you're hearing this, it works.
Yeah, exactly. And for the Microsofties out there, it's not that we chose not to use OneDrive. It doesn't support OneDrive. So we have to use Dropbox. Don't get offended.
I would be interested to see what effect the post-production processing does, because they've got like 17 checkboxes, all cryptic, like Stargate Enterprise control panel in advanced settings. So you go like use X.507-8. Okay. I'm not sure what it's going to do to my podcast, but I'll take it just in case.
If you look in the help guide, it says make third track sound like they're in the bathroom. So
I have another minor recommendation. This isn't enough to make an entire an entire tool of the week. Occasionally, I'll have trouble sleeping, and I found this app that is amazing for helping me get to sleep. It's called Pizziz. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Pizizz. Okay. What it is, and it's free, and I believe it's on iOS and Android, and probably also a PC version. But what it is it makes a random soundtrack of music with this guy with either the most boring or sleep-inducing voice in the world talking, and it's you just start it, and I'm out in like 2 minutes.
Really?
Process that your body.
Interesting. So not whale sounds, not waves or white sound. It's just boring talk.
I'll be speaking quietly with you. There'll be some quiet music, and you might enjoy listening for a while to what I'm saying before drifting off to sleep. Half our listeners just fell asleep.
I'd like.
Oh, sorry.
It is great. I mean,
Were you putting on? What? How many minutes did I miss?
The trouble I have now is I cannot find headphones that are comfortable to wear while you're sleeping. So, didn't you say you invested in some kind of Kickstarter on sleeping headphones, George?
I did, but it's one of those projects that's kind of being late. I think they will deliver, but as with any of the subjects like these, some of these projects, the risk you're taking is that, well, apart from not delivering, but fingers crossed, I didn't have one of those sponsored yet. But the problem is that by the time they deliver, they all underestimate the complexity of the certification, production line, and so forth, the process, right? The manufacturing process itself and distribution. So by the time they're done, they usually they could be 6 months or 8 months late. And by that time, people catch up. Manufacturers actually catch up and deliver a similar product,
Right.
either cheaper or better quality and so forth. So that's one of the risks you're taking. It still looks promising, but it's like they're comfortable to wear while you sleep. Maybe I find that another product that I haven't sponsored yet on Kickstarter, but it was earplugs, noise canceling earplugs. So it's active noise canceling, but they're not headphones, they're earplugs. So that'd be interesting to test on the plane, where that is the most persistent problem. The white noise coming from the engines, that's the problem. And that's the one which active headphones do cut out.
I wouldn't invest in expensive earplugs, because my dog eats earplugs, and so I would lose them.
Yeah.
I backed a Kickstarter Indiegogo for a friend who's producing a movie, so I'm now on IMDb as a movie producer.
Nice.
Here you go. The only thing that on Kickstarter about waking people up, there seems to be a lot of projects that are designed to wake people up. The one caught my attention and made me laugh. It's a device that you mount on the wall, and then you configure it. And basically, what it does, the way it wakes you up, it shines a beam at your face, which kind of looks similar to a sunshine, but it's directed. So if you have a partner who sleeps next to you, the beam goes in straight in your face, but presumably doesn't wake up your partner.
Unless when the beam goes off. Unless when the beam goes off, you're in the bathroom, and it horribly blinds them, never to recover.
That reminds me, though, I do have another little tip here about sleep, and that is, and I got this from one of my colleagues, because I noticed that when we were in a meeting, his light on his light on his phone would blink, and I asked him, how did you do that? And what he did, if you go into your accessibility settings in iOS, there is a setting that will actually, for like hearing impaired people, that will make the light blink. LED flash for alerts is what it's called. And so if you turn that on and you have your phone muted, you will see a visual light will blink. But it's great for the alarm, because I found that, and I don't usually have trouble waking up, but when I do, like this morning, I had to get up earlier than normal. It wasn't the sound that woke me up. It was this spotlight blinking next to me all of a sudden in my room, and it was great.
The last thing before we go, here's the idea. Who would be better to talk about voice of the customer, and how does it compare to ClickDimensions, as someone from ClickDimensions? Maybe we should
Matthew
get
Whitteman.
them on.
Yeah,
Correct.
that'd be a good idea.
So I'm sure he wouldn't mind talking about it and just giving us a fair assessment when to use one or another.
Yeah, and then we could talk about Dynamics marketing. We haven't talked enough about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked just about enough about Dynamics marketing. But do you see that Dynamics marketing somehow integrating with voice of the customer and
I would think it would make
working out
it would make
those tasks we discussed, like profiling, who to send survey to, and so forth?
I can't see why they wouldn't get the hooks into that to make that happen.
I think when it comes to surveys and voice of the customer, all of us, we have one thing in common: we really amateurs.
Right.
Right, and I think Click Dimensions has really shown themselves to stay ahead of the curve on this stuff, and even even quickly adapting based on feedback, based on the things like the designer of the campaigns and things like that. So I think they're a model for an ISV that is thriving in the dynamic space, even when Microsoft is releasing functionality that that parallels what they have. It kind of goes back to when we were talking about EWR versus Resco a couple weeks ago. Offline before the conversation, George, you were talking about the reaction of some ISVs that have functionality that is similar to some of the stuff being released in the Spring Wave, and how it's frightening. And I think you can look at somebody like Click Dimensions as a good example of how to still thrive in this environment, and that's deliver a better product.
Accepting the reality and just moving on, as some experiences show, always yield better long-term benefits. And what's the better example would be as the name escapes me, unfortunately, right now. We can look it up, but the guy who was rejected by Facebook, he applied for a job at Facebook. He got rejected. He also got rejected by Twitter, I believe, in 2009. So he went on and founded a company, and not so long ago he sold a company which is called WhatsApp to the Facebook at 19 billions. That's with the B. So
Oh yeah,
I know
exactly.
It's rare to get a success like that, but you don't need 19 billions to define your path as successful. So to me, just accepting the reality and staying ahead of the game is important. And I think Click Dimensions been doing a wonderful job doing that.
I don't need 19 billion. You can just buy me a cheeseburger or something.
Do you have WhatsApp for sale? Anyway, I think we exhausted. We're just rambling and exhausted all the topics we wanted to talk about. So
we kind of have switched roles here, George, because at the beginning at the first few episodes, it was late night your time, first thing in the morning our time. So we were all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Now you're the one who's like well rested and beginning of the day, and Sean and I are just kind of dragging.
Thank you very much, and until the next time.
This has been CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast. You can hear previous episodes on our website, crm.audio. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio, or leave us a comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CRM podcast. If you have any topic suggestions or questions that you would like for us to answer on a future episode, please drop us an email at voice@crm.audio. Special thanks to Dale Simmons for our theme music. Go check out his website, dalesimmons.com. Please join us next time on CRM Audio.